What's up everybody, welcome to this. It's the second student exemplar video. So if you've done a piece of work for English literature and you've done really well in it, then send it to me, info@mrbruff.com. If it's featured in a video, you will receive 2 free ebooks from me. It doesn't mean it has to be perfect. We'll look at the video, we'll look at the work in the video, but it'll help everybody to see your work if you've done really well in it. So this was an analysis of the theme of duality in Jekyll and Hyde. And again, not a piece of work that is based on an extract, but a piece of work that hopefully we can learn a lot from through looking at the analysis. Let's have a look. Known as Stevenson's main theme, duality is expressed copiously throughout the novel in many different ways. These include the setting and placement of scenes in the book that parallel characters and ideas, the characterization of Jekyll as a dichotomous figure who unleashes his alter ego Hyde, and the minor characters, Lanyon and Utterson, also resonation Stevens' focus on duality. So you might think, oh, lots of big words here, and that's true. But what really is being said here in this introduction, and I like it, is look, duality is a key theme, and here are a few of the ways I'm going to explore duality in the text. And what I love is that the sort of introduction says, look, here's something I'm going to say about structure, the placement of the scenes. Here's something I'm going to say about language, the characterization. It's kind of making it very clear to the examiner, I'm going to explore the various areas I need to explore to get a high mark here. Now, you don't get any marks for an introduction, and I always think that depending on how much you can write in the time given, there's nothing wrong with a one-sentence introduction. So I would be happy to write something like, Stevenson's main theme of duality is portrayed through language and structure and form. And then, that would do for me. It would do the same sort of thing. But this is certainly an introduction which does the same thing. It just takes a little bit longer. Firstly, Stevenson uses the setting to parallel characters and the theme of duality in order to support his idea that we all have the potential for good and evil. So there's a nice topic sentence. The first sentence of each paragraph should explain what the rest of the paragraph is about. What I love about this paragraph is it's writing about Stevenson. So many people write about the texts as if the characters are real, but we have to remember that the characters are just a construct of the author, of the writer, who is using those characters and setting and everything else to present their themes. So let's have a look. London is a place known for its thriving trade, and the novel opens with a quaint scene where its streets are bustling as usual. However, amongst those shops lay women displaying coquetry, a word that connotes sexual immorality and flirtatiousness. Through this do we see that both charming and unpleasant things reside in London, and Stevenson chooses to do this in order to reflect the duality of human nature. So what I like here is there's always a risk with literature, and I've seen, lots of people have been sending me their work and I've been reading through it, and I've seen a lot of students who basically retell the story rather than analyze a writer's use of language or structure or form. But what this student here is doing, and they've asked again to remain anonymous, but what they're doing is they're saying, okay, here's something that happens, but here's why Stevenson is doing it, to reflect the duality of human nature. So it's understanding that this is this construct from the writer. Furthermore, we see that a door that is blistered and disdained, described from Utterson's narrative, which, on first reading, the reader may not realise. However, in actuality, this is the back door to Jekyll's house. A house that is known to be handsome contains such an evil and radically different counterpart in the dissecting room and Jekyll lab. This duality that is being conveyed by Stevenson represents the doubleness of Jekyll himself. The good-natured and nicely decorated house also contains a dirty and diseased side to it that is hidden away. The thought of having this unpleasant part within the reader, particularly with the Victorian readership, would be unwelcomed. Yet, however much we try to hide our evil, like how Jekyll's back door is hidden, it is still an inescapable fact, and Stevenson has shown this through the creation of Jekyll's house. Moreover, Soho has muddy overtones and is not a pleasant place either. Hyde's house has been situated there to highlight the antithetical nature of Jekyll and Hyde, as his house is in contradiction to Jekyll's. It's obvious to assume that he is only there because Hyde is evil, but unlike Jekyll, Hyde's house is only nicely furnished on the interior, which suggests he has nothing to hide on the exterior and accepts his nature. Jekyll is in denial of his evil within himself, therefore the reader may start to question his morality. In addition, the fabrication of a dichotomous character in Jekyll himself enables Stevenson to explore man's dual nature and push the boundaries of what truly constitutes good and evil. Jekyll is known to be the handsome man who partakes in charitable events and strongly conforms to the Victorian stereotype. He conceals his pleasures and on first reading may still be painted the picture of an angel. His hellish counterpart in Hyde commits unjustified acts of evil, and Stevenson alludes to Darwin when he is compared to an ape, compared to the more upright Jekyll. The animalism in Hyde is a complete subversion from the traditional Victorian stereotype of men, to the point where, on meeting Hyde, characters have a visible misgiving of the flesh. Hyde's immorality is apparent when he tramples calmly over a young, innocent girl and brutally disfigures Sir Danvers Carew unprovoked. From the outset, the reader may conclude that Hyde is satanic, whereas Jekyll is amiable. However, Stevenson makes the issue more complex. For one, Jekyll himself is not wholly good, but rather a composite of wanting pleasure and being austere with himself. Jekyll seems to separate his profound duplicity and shed the curse of mankind. However, in doing so, he only removes his facade of respectability and projects the undeveloped evil within him, and projects the underdeveloped evil within him, that should be. The reader may be surprised on the realization that there is no angel, but only the incongruous Jekyll, who in fact struggles to do the right thing and turn himself in. Stevenson further compounds the issue of Jekyll's duality when Hyde is wholly satanic and from the pits of hell. There is no trace of good within him, and while pale and dwarfish to begin with, he grows in strength throughout the novel and usurps Jekyll. Stevenson may be saying that the duality of mankind cannot be controlled. There is no simple good and evil, but only humans that live within society who repress their monstrous nature. Now, this is an interesting paragraph. It's pretty different to the previous paragraph. And in this paragraph, what we have is an overload of quotations. And this is one way of writing a literature analysis. For me, I always feel that there are missed opportunities for detailed, close word analysis when you have a long paragraph like this that uses maybe 10 quotations but doesn't explore in detail any of them. So I prefer a much more focused, sort of exploratory, exhaustive analysis of just one or two quotations rather than an idea which is complex but that uses in the expression of that idea so many quotations. Of course, for most of you, you'll have the extract and then the no book in the exam. So it would be impossible to know all of these quotations unless they came from an extract. But I think it would be better to just take one or two quotations and explore in exhaustive detail how these themes and ideas are expressed. Because the fact is, you could go through all of the same ideas with a lot less need for so many quotations. Moreover, despite not apparent, Stevenson also imparts elements of duality within his minor characters, Lanyon and Utterson, in order to express that even the most avid conformers to social constructions also cannot ignore their intrinsic dual nature. I mean, that's a beautiful, beautiful sentence, because again, it references the fact that this is the writer doing something. It doesn't just say Lanyon and Utterson also have dual natures. It says Stevenson gives them that, and then it says why Stevenson gives them that, to express that even the most avid conformers to social constructions cannot ignore their intrinsic dual nature. Beautiful. I love it. I love this way that this student has these topic sentences that just hit the nail right on the head and sort of really make it clear this is what this paragraph is about. A lot of the work that I've been sent is filled with good ideas, but you have to really read through it before you get to grips with what the student is trying to say. Whereas here, the examiner is going to read this opening sentence and think, wow, okay, this is great. This is going to be a really high mark answer. As long as the rest of this paragraph explains this and explores this, we know this is going to be really good. rather than read something and it not be until you get to the end of the paragraph that you think, oh right, that's what they were saying. So great topic sentences in this piece of work. Coming from a Victorian setting where the expectations of men were difficult to uphold, Stevenson suggests Lanyon and Utterson's duality is a symptom of living in those overly repressed times. Utterson is quickly summed up to the reader as being dusty and dreary, yet during the course of the book our understanding of the kind of man he truly is broadens. Despite his austere manner, he transforms into a man of action and makes it his duty to break down the door to Jekyll's lab. Furthermore, Lanyon himself is a man of science that criticises Jekyll by calling his work unscientific balderdash, but he also becomes tempted to watch Jekyll transform. While regarded as men of rationality, even they cannot escape the curse of being dual. And then we move into the conclusion, and I think actually this was an underdeveloped idea. It was a great idea that the topic sentence suggested something brilliant, but I don't think it was explored in enough detail. And again, it could well be, like in our last example, that the student actually thought, wow, I'm running out of time here, I need to wrap this up. So again, there's evidence that this could have been a little bit better structured. The time that was taken to use all of these quotations in this paragraph, which really wasn't necessary, could have been a more concise paragraph and still made the same great points on analysis, could have been used to further explore this very sophisticated idea about Lanyon and Utterson, which is slightly rushed, I think. It's a sophisticated idea. It needs to be explored. I think the references to context are just sort of mentioned almost as asides, and context is so important in this text. So this is a sort of unfulfilled in terms of it could have been better. And then we have the conclusion. In conclusion, we only learn of Jekyll's inherent duplicity in chapter 10, and his story is quite a poignant one. His potion serves to release his book from the bonds of obligation, but Stevenson makes it his point to say that these bonds of obligation restrain us from being bestial like Hyde. Jekyll's duality, both in himself and through Hyde, causes him to enjoy the sensation of Hyde vicariously, which ultimately leads to his death, a powerful message Stevenson drives home. So I like that as a conclusion. And you guys know, if you watch my videos or if you've bought my ebooks at mrbruff.com, that the highest marks go to answers which are not just isolated random points of analysis, but actually have a line of argument, a coherent theory or idea which is explored through the entire answer. And we do see that here. The idea that is being explored is that there is lots of duality in the text, and that Stevenson uses it to present the idea that he has about the duality of mankind. That was the idea, that was the theory, and it was explored through the duality in the setting, and then the duality in Jekyll, and then the duality in Lanyon and Utterson. Slightly underexplored in Lanyon and Utterson, slightly overly kind of complicated in the bit about Jekyll himself, but certainly had that line of argument which was explored all the way through. If you enjoy these videos, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does make a difference.